The arrogance of Real Madrid knows no bounds. Once again, the slow news day resurfacing of old rumours like Haaland now to Real Madrid, and of course the other day it was Rodri to Real Madrid. I mean, yeah, just give the whole spine of our team to Real Madrid. That makes sense. Perfect sense, doesn't it? And you know what? I'm not even sure it's the fans anymore, or even the club. The club are actually connected to the media side of things from Real Madrid, the Fichajes and Defensa Central, which is the two publications that are running with this particular story today, that Haaland is very much on his way to Real Madrid. What a load of bollocks. Once again, from the Spanish media. I'm starting to get into the situation now, and I'm sure you guys are as well. If we can figure out the tactics at play here, then surely Manchester City can, and surely all the other football clubs in the world can see what Real Madrid are trying to do and just poach the best players from the clubs. And Haaland right now is obviously the hottest goal-scoring prospect in world football. The greatest goal scorer potentially we've ever seen, with the numbers that he's putting on the board if he stays fit. Going on for another decade of Erling Haaland, how many goals will this guy score? It's just unfathomable. You just can't think of it. It's just unrealistic to even imagine what he could do. He's a frightening prospect, but 3 years left on his contract, with the rumours that are apparently €200 million release clause that gets smaller, that release clause. There's so much bollocks that gets put out there. You don't know which to cipher through the shite that gets put into the media to work out what's actually true. With the release clause being €200 million, some saying £200 million, which is a big difference. And of course, the release clause gets smaller the closer it gets to the end of his contract, which has got 3 years left. 3 years. The guy seems pretty committed to me with 7 goals in 3 games in his Manchester City season so far. Scoring 97 goals in 102 appearances. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to pay a lot of money, Real Madrid. 200 million. And you've seen the way they had to operate with Mbappe. The way they had to approach for Mbappe was patience. If you want that player, you better wait. And it's paid off. They've got the man they wanted, and they got him on a free. You know why? Because they couldn't afford him. They could not afford the fees that PSG were asking for at the time when the contract would require breaking to get that player. The same will be said about Haaland. Absolutely no chance have you got of breaking Erling Haaland's contract for any less than Manchester City have agreed with Haaland and his agent. And the statements that they make as well, Fichajes, the first line in the article, the arrogance. Erling Haaland could be one step away. This is my Spanish version. Erling Haaland could be one step away from becoming Real Madrid's next Galactico if certain conditions are met. What step is that? What one step are you talking about there? The release clause, is that certain conditions? What do you mean, the measly €200 million? Oh, just that one little step. Do you know what I mean? Cough it up, mate. If you want to pay for Erling Haaland, Real Madrid better pay. You got to pay the big money to get the big players. And Real Madrid are not doing that. They are trying to work the market to their advantage. And why not? They're playing the cards that they've been dealt, which is financially less than Manchester City. You are beneath Manchester City financially. As a football club, historically and on the pitch, very level. Historically, miles ahead of Manchester City right now, as of yet. We could change that in the next decade or two. But who knows? Right now, financially, though, you're playing with the big dogs, you know. PSG are a big dog. They had to wait. They had to get in line. Get in line, Real Madrid, and wait for Mbappe. And they got the man, fair play. They got what they wanted in the end, but it required patience. And if they want the same with Haaland, it will require patience. Now, the question for me is that I have not seen a single little morsel of evidence that would suggest that Erling Haaland is ready to leave this football club. He is ripping up the record books at Manchester City. Destroying them. This guy could be beating Alan Shearer's all-time goal-scoring record in the Premier League, and he's well on track to do that. And I have a funny feeling that this is the sort of man that wants to break these records. He feeds on these types of records. He knows all too well that Alan Shearer holds that record, and I have a good feeling that he wants to stay and beat it. And that will require more than the 3 years left on his contract. He'll probably have to add another 2, maybe even 3 more years on top of that. And if Real Madrid come calling when he's 29, when he's 30, Okay, we've got almost, 7 or 8 years out of Erling Haaland. I'll be a very happy Manchester City fan, knowing full well that Haaland has played at this football club for 7 or 8 years, because we know that that brings trophies and goals and bags of them. Bags and bags and bags of goals. Don't you just love it? You look at what they're doing right now as well, Real Madrid. They've just signed Endrick. Isn't Endrick meant to be this generational talent, this centre-forward that's going to blow away European football, the next hot prospect, the Brazilian wonder kid? They've just signed it. That's good business, by the way. I can pat Real Madrid on the back for that, because that is doing your homework. Going to the South American League, scouting, doing your homework. What Manchester City have been doing for years, and the top clubs should be doing the same. Not just waiting for these talents to appear at the A-list clubs, and Real Madrid consider themselves the A-plus list club, and they just poach from the best football clubs in the world, the best players. Go and do your homework. And Real Madrid do that on occasions, by the way. And Endrick is a prime example of that. So I would like to see what this player brings. The superstar names. Mbappe. He plays centre-forward for Real Madrid. What are you going to do? You're going to push him on the right? That's going to frustrate him. He's going to ask questions. He wants to be the main man. The idea of Haaland coming in while you've got Endrick, Mbappe, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. Someone's got to go somewhere. I mean, there's obviously Haaland would go straight into the number 1 position at number 9. So Mbappe goes on the right and probably Vinicius on the left. Endrick becomes a wasted purchase and would end up going to another football club to get minutes, no doubt. You've got Brahim Diaz as well, former Manchester City man, of course. So, again, example of homework being done by Manchester City and Real Madrid having to pay money for Brahim Diaz, for example. So, do you know what I mean? So the players leaving Manchester City isn't that common, first of all. The idea that these have been going ever since we received the money. Sergio Aguero comes into the club. It was Real Madrid and Barcelona. That's where his future was. Within a year of joining Manchester City, he spent over 10 years, man, just banging goals in for Manchester City. David Silva was the same. Yaya Touré was the same. Even Vincent Kompany, when he was hitting the heights, was getting linked with moves away from the football club. Players, the best players at Manchester City, they settle. They feel at home. They are looked after incredibly well. How many City players do you see kicking up a fuss trying to leave? And the ones that do leave, how many of them go on to be a better success than they were at Manchester City? The only one I can think of is probably Leroy Sané, who went up a little bit of a level when he joined Bayern Munich. But he still has strong connections with Manchester City. He comes back all the time and watches City and gives high fives to Pep and has a chat with all the players. Leroy Sané has nothing but respect from City fans and vice versa from him to the fans and to the club. You know, you look at Raheem Sterling. How well did he do when he left Manchester City? I mean, Zinchenko was meant to be the next best thing, and Arsenal now got this experience. Gabriel Jesus, they've got the experience, title-winning experience they've got. What did that do for you? No, because it's not the players, it's the club. It's the atmosphere, it's the aura around Manchester City that we generate to make these players happy, and they do not want to leave. You can think of all of the players. We let go Gundogan, that was a huge loss. 1 year later, can I come back, please? I don't like it at Barcelona. Barcelona, that's right. Remember that 10 years ago, imagine saying that about a player going to Barcelona and regretting leaving Manchester City and demanding to come back and leaving Barcelona. Imagine saying that 10 years ago. You'd be sent to the asylum, mate. You'd be wrapped up in a straitjacket and rocking back and forth in a padded room. You absolute mental case thinking Gundogan would want to come back to Manchester City. But those are the facts. The best players, they come back if they want to come back, or if they don't, they regret it. They go on for the rest of their career and they regret leaving Manchester City. The same can be said about Rodri. Again, you only need to look at that interview that he did with Joe Hart. Highly recommend going and checking that out on the BBC's channel. The way he spoke was fantastic, and he's so committed to the cause, same as Erling Haaland. And it's fantastic. Fabrizio Romano has most recently on his podcast said, no news on Rodri now, guys. It's completely quiet. Full focus on City for Rodri. That's that then. That's simple. Sorted. Do you know what I mean? All of this stuff comes out and Romano just pisses all over the Spanish media that are trying to generate this image that Real Madrid is still going for the best players. It's headline grabbing. It's trying to keep Real Madrid on a level above Manchester City, saying we're getting their players. You know, I have every feeling that Jude Bellingham one day will be back in the Premier League because he hasn't played in the Premier League yet. He will want to play in the Premier League at some point in his career. For who is the question for me? I'll leave my little head nod to let you guys fill in the blanks on that one. More good news, though. There hasn't been any good news in this video, actually, so let's start with some good news, at least. Marc Guehi. I like the player. I think he's good. I reported this last summer that Manchester City were targeting him. Obviously, the Newcastle deal fell through. Now Manchester City are waiting in the wings, reportedly, for Marc Guehi of Crystal Palace. With Newcastle, they pulled out of that deal for £70 million, getting out of the realms of possibility for Newcastle, with them obviously trying to dance around the regulations of PSR. That deal fell through. £70 million was too much for Newcastle. They pulled out of that deal in the summer. But now the guy's contract expires in 2026. So 1 year left as the next summer approaches. Next summer, he will have 1 year left on his contract. That's 70 million. You could halve that. Probably closer to 40, maybe 50 at a push you could get for Marc Guehi, who will then be 25 at the time. I think he's a great player, and I reported on this last summer. I think he is a fantastic centre-back, and he did so well in the Euros for England. One of our best players, and he was stepping in for Maguire, who went out injured at the time. I mean, there's no way Maguire's getting in ahead of Marc Guehi now for me. Absolutely class performances alongside John Stones, and that is the player that I think would likely be made way for Marc Guehi. John Stones, who we all love at Manchester City, he's created a new role where other football clubs, Arsenal in particular, calling that role where Zinchenko was inverting, the John Stones role, or Partey, the John Stones role, it's now known as. He's a fantastic player, John Stones, but make no mistake, the guy gets injured, man. He's, as they say, availability is the best ability. And John Stones is not always available. It's a real big problem in his career. When he's fit and raring to go and playing his best football, he's absolutely sensational, John Stones. But his contract too ends in 2026. By the time it's 2025, he will be a 31-year-old, whereas Marc Guehi will be a 25-year-old. So it makes sense for me if City could make way with John Stones. It would be a shame to lose John Stones. I mean, we can't have too many centre-backs on the rosters because we haven't got anyone other than John Stones and Kyle Walker who are the wrong side of 30. Nathan Ake is our oldest defender, who's 29. That's mad. He's only 29. Ake's got years ahead of him. For me, Gvardiol's still so young. Ruben Diaz in the peak of his career. Akanji in the peak of his career. So for me, Marc Guehi makes perfect sense. He would tick the box for English quota as well, which is also fantastic news. But Blues, what do you make of the Haaland news? What do you make of the Rodri news? And what do you make of the Marc Guehi news? The first two, I think I know your answer, but the Marc Guehi one's definitely got some meat to it for a discussion as to the future of Manchester City's defence. Get in the comments below, let us know your thoughts, like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up silver.